Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and today we're going to be talking about seed investing and early stage venture capital, maybe a few other subjects as well. I'm joined by my co-hosts today, who have traveled from around the virtual world to join us just here. We were having a little fun pre-show, and I think it's going to continue as well. So jumping right in, a big thank you to your audience for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear, make sure you subscribe and also check out the archive on LATOKEN.com to hear from my outstanding co-hosts. I guess my screen's a little tight. Left and right, that way, along with the entire family of VCTV speakers as we bring the best and the brightest from around the world to share with you their thoughts and insights and investment perspective on different technologies, industries, regions around the world as well. And if you'd like to be on a show like today, reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find that right spot for you. Speaking of team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day and putting up with all of us in the green room beforehand as well. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead. Introducing co-host number one. Who am I going to pick? Jason. Oh, that way, not that way. Jason, this way. Jason, yes. Welcome. There we go.
Right, well, thank you, Kyle and LATOKEN, for having me back. It's always an enjoyable conversation. Propellant Ventures is a seed stage fund that is investing in pre-seed and seed stage opportunities throughout the Midwest of the U.S. We're very bold with some of the opportunities we're looking at. We'll come in at an earlier stage than a lot of VCs. We'll sometimes be the first professional investor or lead an early stage deal, but we're really bullish on the Midwest. There's a lot of great opportunities here. The valuations are generally a little bit lower. So we're excited about investing in the Midwest. And personally, I've been active in this community for over 20 years, supporting the ecosystem to help grow the ecosystem around entrepreneurs and investors. And I also run the Chicago chapter of the Founder Institute, which is a pre-seed accelerator. I launched Chicago chapter 10 years ago. We were in the first 20 cities. Now it's in 200 cities around the world. So excited to be a part of that as well. And it really feeds into what I'm doing with the fund as well. So there's a lot of synergies with all of that. So glad to be back.
Wonderful. Glad to have you today as well, Jason. A lot to talk about within the industry and specifically in the Midwest. We've seen a lot of early stage and seed activity out of the Midwest at a variety of levels and industries, and curious to hear your thoughts on what's happening there. But before we get there, my next co-host, the one and only, the Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, the Yodas of Yodas, if you will, Mr. Gary Fowler.
The Obi-Wan Kenobi of Kenobis. Sounds like an Italian dessert, doesn't it?
If someone out there wants to name it and put an NFT on it. If someone wants to name it, make an NFT out of it, I'll buy it. There you go.
It's great to be here, Kyle. Great to see Jason. It seems like, I see you guys every day. I don't know what to say. Jason, just yesterday, right? So my name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur investor. I've done 17 companies. I'm the CEO, co-founder, and president of GSD Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Silicon Valley. Click Software sold for $1.35 billion. I was on the original team. Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded 5 years ago with Dr. David Yang, one of the top AI companies today. We invest in companies. We look for companies that have incredible technologies that can make a dent in the universe, primarily in AI, because guess what? AI is like the new electricity. It really permeates all walks of our lives, and data is around us that needs to be interpreted. As I've said many times, we're in this state, as Alvin Toffler said, of infobesity. And the key is we need to make sense of that data. There'll be people that know and don't know. Well, we want to make sure we level the playing field and make sure people do know.
Absolutely. And Gary, I want to jump right in. I mean, in terms of artificial intelligence, let's hold on that, but I want to go into GSV for a second. GSV, you started and have been continuing to build this out, working with early stage companies. What are some of the types of companies you started to see outside of maybe artificial intelligence that have started to apply and started to work with you in the studios, or that you and your team have been building on over the past year as, again, GSV has really been developed?
Yeah, so, one of the things at GSD that we're proud of is that we're really agnostic in terms of the region. We're finding companies in Africa, South Africa, Rwanda, Nigeria, Kenya, which, if you had asked me a year ago before we started on this journey together, Kyle, with VCTV, I would have said, no, how am I going to get there? I don't know anybody. But now it's a lot different. We're finding companies in Australia, Indonesia, Germany, we got 3 companies. We got a company in the UK, just all over. I mean, it's intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities aren't. Russia, of course, Ukraine, Belarus. So the kind of companies we're seeing is companies that are ready to go global. That's really our sweet spot. Companies that have $250,000 to $500,000 worth of revenue. Companies that have product market fit and a really cool team. But we're looking for special kind of teams, flexible teams. By that, I mean, we come in as we take executive roles in the companies. Many times I'll be CEO or executive chairman of the company. My partner, Derek, will come in as COO or CRO. Gus Vierta, who's my chief strategy officer, will come in. So we basically, fill the team out. But we're finding people are more willing, at least today, to this date, Kyle, because they've been cooped up. I think there's going to be another effect happen once people start to go out. They're going to forget we forget negative things very, very quickly, right? Unfortunately. And all the lessons we learned, all the opportunities we've garnered from being able to do exactly what we've done now, because we've had a captive audience, it's going to be a lot different, right? It's going to change things. And so what we have to do is we've got to run as fast as we can. This opportunity, as I said in the beginning of this, with you, this is a limited window of opportunity, and it'll set the stage and platform for the future for all of us, right? And the people that ran the fastest would win.
That's very, very spot on. And taking a quick step back, so you mentioned you work with a lot of companies global. Early stage companies, sometimes it can be a detriment to go global very early. However, most customer bases are global on day one. So when you work with these companies looking to go global, how are you working with them? How are you coaching them through that process? Because a seed investment of $1 million is not necessarily going to help a company go global on day one. A seed investment of maybe $5 million could, maybe not. Walk us through that recipe, without giving away all the secrets, but some of the recipe for those that are tuning in here on VCTV.
We're an open book, Kyle. So we look at 3 levels, and I write about this a lot. So if they Google my name and startups, you see I've written quite a few articles about it. But there's 3 levels. So one is you've got acceleration, where you go up to product market fit. You maybe have some customers. You got your deck right. You got your deck at least moving in the right direction. You've raised some kind of funding. That's the acceleration phase. Phase 2 is regional dominance. By that, I mean you've really dominated. So if you're in Asia, you've dominated a specific market, Indonesia, in China, wherever, Vietnam, but you really dominated that market. So what we believe is 80% of the job is done once you've dominated that. Then the next stage is going global. And so we look at companies that have $250,000 to $500,000 worth of revenue. Why? Because it means they've got a lot of kinks worked out in the system, and the probability of their success is much higher. We also look for the team. We look for resilient, flexible teams, because as you know, most founders do not survive like through a Series B round of funding. They're replaced, or they're other people were added to the team to be able to help out. We say, let's take them up through a Series B round of funding. Let's make sure they got the credibility. They've got the story down. They've got first customers. They've got the narrative correct. All the pieces, we plug the holes where there's issues that need to be plugged and help that company go out. We set up Delaware corporations with an office in the Valley. Why? Because in 100 years, people are going to say that Silicon Valley is the Athens of the information age. And if you want to, it's like simple. When I growing up as a kid in Pennsylvania on the side of the mountain, if you wanted to go fishing, it was, you go to the lake that's got the fish, right? The freshly stocked lake. You wouldn't go to some unknown pond, right? You would go to the place. If you only have a limited amount of time, you want to maximize your or optimize your opportunity, you would go to the place for the fish. And I'll never forget, true story. So my friend went out. He decided to go to that pond. I went to the lake, same area. I caught my limit at 6 fish. He caught 0. I ended up giving him half of my fish. right? He said, it was really boring. I didn't have any fun. There was a lot of mosquitoes. And I'm like, I loved it. I was pulling them in like crazy, rainbow trout, And so the moral of the story is you got to go where the fish are. Why Silicon Valley is right? Because if I'm in San Francisco, I can deal with T-Mobile, right? T-Mobile Ventures. I can meet with Salesforce Ventures. I can meet with Twitter Ventures. I can meet with BMW's venture group, Magnus Steyr out of Austria, Docomo in Palo Alto from Japan, the largest telecommunication company in Japan. They just happen to have offices there. So if I want to go fishing, I don't have to go that far, right? And because the Silicon Valley is open, it's much easier to get to them. It's not like, so if I talk to the Mr. Suzuki, Takashi Suzuki down in Palo Alto, is the head of Docomo Ventures. I call him up on his mobile phone, right? His cell phone. Hey, what's your schedule like? And we talk. Access.
Right. But you are not an early stage founder in that case. So as an early stage founder, I mean, what do they do when they are in those locations?
So early stage founders. So, depends on how early. There's early. Everybody defines early in a different way, right?
Here, I'll give you early. Here's the parameters: less than 10 million in valuation, raised less than $1 million in funding. Go.
So those early stage founders. So that's a unique situation. That's almost no man's land, a no person's land, right? Because you want to go global, but you don't have the funding to be able to do it. So what's the thing? I mean, keep it simple, stupid. What do they need to do? One is they need to get the revenue numbers up. If they want to come to the U.S. market, they need to have some revenue here, right? They need to figure out how to get some type of revenue here or build their story to be able to show how they can transport their model from wherever they are to the U.S. with the same types of customers. So that's the best way to get the valuation up. The other thing, what we do is we actually have GSD Labs, which works with early stage companies. So in 10 weeks, essentially we bring, top VCs in, people like the former chief security officer of Apple, the former COO of regional COO of Walmart, people like that. We have an entire mentoring group. So you're actually dealing with mentors that are from family offices or from VCs that really want to invest. But the difference is they're dealing with you in a very a mentoring way. It's not like you're trying to pitch them. They're actually trying to help you, which on the Trojan horse side, they're really investors wanting to look for really cool teams. So we do that because it really is no man's land or no person's land. And that's a 10 weeks that we put them through that process. We don't make a lot of money on it. It's not a money maker for us. It costs me $20,000 to $25,000 per person to run it, to bring the right kind of resources in. And, we generally charge about $7,500 for it for the entire 10-week period. It's all virtual, but it really helps. The response we have had, it takes us through what we have gotten in 2 to 3 years in 10-week period of time, because you're meeting the investors without having to, virtually, without ever having to go there. And they're also helping you with your deck. So imagine having top tier VCs critiquing your deck and telling you how to get the wow in it, because they're going to refer you to their friend.
Right. Which is huge. And, switching gears on that, I mean, Jason, I want to come over to you next. So, being in the Midwest, things are slightly different now, maybe not so much, as things are much more distributed. So when you work with companies in the Midwest and you think of early stage, what does that mean to you and to Propellant? I mean, what does early stage companies look like in your mind, from what you guys seeing from a diligence perspective and maybe some of those general outreach?
Yeah, Propellant Ventures focus is pre-seed and early seed. Now we can go later than that, but that's our main focus. So generally we like to see companies that have some proof of concept or some market traction. A little bit of revenue is great. I mean, we prefer that there's some revenue. It could be 10,000 revenue, could be 10,000 MRR. We don't have a specific number in mind, but we do like to see that there is some revenue that, we're coming in, a little bit beyond that friends and family or early, first angel investors. We'll invest alongside angels, but we like to see some proof of concept that's out there, just, as part of our due diligence. And so, valuations definitely are under 10 million. I mean, some people try to creep them up past 10 million, which in the Midwest at that stage, generally that's going to be too high. So could be anywhere from 3 to 7.5 million, somewhere in there. Revenue is going to be, could be a couple $100,000 or less as a starting point. Now, it depends on the founders. If they're seasoned founders and they've bootstrapped the company, they can get it to a certain level before they even raise their first professional round. So, some of those opportunities, they may be in a few $100,000 in revenue already. But for me, it's early proof of concept is what we look at. That's a sweet spot really that we fit in for Propellant Ventures. And with the Founder Institute, these are idea stage companies, early product development, early market acceptance. So they're trying to build their company as they're going through our program. So those are not investable yet for our fund, but as they start to build it out over the next year or two, yeah, that's something we would take a look at, as they're starting to raise their first professional round. Mm-hmm. So we recently invested in one of our Founder Institute grads who finished in 2018. So we made the investment early this year. So it took a little while for them to build it, but we were comfortable when we came in because there is revenue now. There's customers, proof that there is a market for this. So it depends on the industry. If it's healthcare, digital healthcare, I mean, that could be pre-revenue. Even if we get into the opportunity, it just depends on what they've done, how far along they've built it, because it does take time for some of those types of companies to get revenue.
Mm-hmm. So, well, and there's some great research out there as well, which I think will lead to a good conversation with three of us. I mean, we've all either started an early stage company, started a company that led into early stage or seed, or have worked with one or invested in one as well. And the numbers aren't great when it comes towards, that next round or exit. So some recent data that was put together following Crunchbase, and also give a shout out to Sebastian Quintero, who put this great article together, which I'll share with the audience and you both, that according to Crunchbase data, that there's a almost 79.4% failure to raise the following round at the seed level. So and there's an 80% chance of failure to raise from a seed to a series. That's not just getting your first round, that's going from seed to Series A, and that there is a 97% failure to exit at that stage, which of course continues to go down over time as the company becomes more successful. What are some thoughts as investors when hearing stats like that and thinking about investing at the early stage level, knowing that it's so high risk? What do you look for, or how do you try to help mitigate that risk so that other investors that are listening today on VCTV can have that thought in their mind as well? And Gary, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, the situation is, I started accelerator in Russia, the first accelerator, and we've had thousands of people through that accelerator. And so the scope of a startup academy, also GBA, and it's, keep it simple, stupid. It's like, you need to do your customer development. What happens a lot of time is these entrepreneurs have family and friends rounds, and they're technical entrepreneurs, but they build the best stuff in the world, but it's the best thing for them. They never do their customer development to be able to validate whether people want to buy it. And as Bob Dorff and Steve Blank said in their book, it's do they want to grab it out of their hands. So what I did, I actually brought Bob Dorff into my program, and Bob Dorff taught. So we went down through from square one. So what does that do? Dramatically increases the chance they're going to raise those rounds of funding because they have product market fit. Revenue is important. From my perspective, especially during the pandemic, what kind of revenue do you have? Now, of course, some companies, are just into acquisition. They're not into the revenue piece, but we look at it very, very closely because if they can generate revenue, that means from my perspective, they have product market fit and people want to grab it out of their hands. I can tell you from my own experience building a company up through different series of EVA, we had to pivot. So the first part of the company we built is a Google-like search for the personal cloud. I had a couple 100,000 users for sure, but nobody wanted to pay for it. They wanted it for free. Why? Because they think Google gives things for free, right? And there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's a reason you get Gmail for free, right? Of course, you got to pay a little storage, but advertising, focused advertising, etc. But people don't think of that. They don't also think of privacy and security either. But that's they talk about, oh, I don't know, I don't want to be hacked, and then you're using all these different accounts for free. So what we do is we look at that. We look for the product market fit. We look at the team, and what we're trying to do is we want to make sure that there are people out there, customers out there, investors out there that like their idea, product, or service. Many times those startups don't have access to the investors, and that's where it starts to become a problem. Or they get dumb money right from the beginning. And the dumb money doesn't help. When you go, I've had incredible stories. Never forget this, a real story. A guy had invested $500,000 in a company. We got involved with that particular company, no revenue, invested $500,000, heard that we were getting involved in the company in a very positive way. So he said, well, geez, this company's going to be worth a lot of money. He said, but I want to get some of my money out and make something what I already invested. So he wanted his $500,000 back and another $250,000. And he wanted 5% of the U.S. operations. And it was insane. I couldn't believe it. So if you get dumb money because you just want money, it's a bad thing. Nothing good's going to happen later. You got to be really, really careful about it. So look for venture capitalists. You're going to look for partners, whatever the level of investor, that can actually be partners and help you grow the company. Because if you don't, nothing good's going to happen in the future. So look for that. And you're right. It's like 9 out of 10 startups fail, but a lot of it's because they don't have product market fit. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to do marketing. They're great technologists. What is it? 65 or 70% of all startups are founded by technical entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. But the problem is sales and marketing. Some cultures look at it almost like voodoo, right? Oh, we don't need sales. The product will sell itself. I've heard that many, many times. But in reality, the sales and marketing are extremely valuable to be able to position a company. That's one of the things that Silicon Valley is really great about, is that when you come to the Valley, there are a lot of people that understands operations, sales, marketing, business development, and it's key to going global. Mm-hmm. So we tell those early stage companies, make sure you have a balanced team. What does that mean? You've got somebody that's a technologist as a co-founder. You got somebody that's knows sales and marketing as a founder, or you have somebody with operational experience. Because you have those three, and they're each good at what they're doing, and you can work as a team like a symphony orchestra. You have a higher probability of winning and a higher probability of pivoting. If you get into trouble, like we did with Eva, we had to pivot 3 times. We went through Google-like search to Smart Assistant, which, by the way, Google gives it for free, so it wasn't a good place, to using the same types of patents to HR tech, and won. So it's about having the resilience. You can't give up. It's about, Muhammad Ali said one time, actually several boxers have said it, but I remember Muhammad Ali saying, it's not the fighter that gets knocked down, it's the one that gets back up.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true. But Jason, coming to you on that same question, I mean, again, you've got a 20% chance of success, 80% chance of failure to raise from a seed to a series. So again, for some out there, that could be anywhere from as low as 250,000 all the way up to around 5 million. And then going into your Series A, that can be anywhere from a couple million up through 10 to 15, depending on the company. But even higher chance of failure at exit, 97%. What is it that you want to give as advice to investors that are looking at companies in this space? I mean, again, in the Midwest, there's still a lot of resources, a ton. Now there's more access to more as well without having to travel. What advice do you have for investors out there?
Well, one thing that we look for, very important, Gary's hit on pretty much everything, but the one thing that's important is the team, the founder. 2 of our opportunities that we invested in are from seasoned founders. They've sold companies previously for positive returns for their investors. So I feel pretty good about investing in one of those founders. Again, they're not going to start another company if they didn't believe they could be successful. Now, there's still obviously a risk with any investment, but I feel pretty good about backing a seasoned team. So, and then, the founder seasoned, but looking who else that they've brought around their team. They brought people smarter than them in different areas to round out the team. And so that's important. And B2B is an industry that we like to focus on. It's a stronger path, hopefully, to revenue for if they execute properly. And in the Midwest, the B2B, we're a B2B region. We're not a B2C region. So B2B is definitely an area of where a lot of investors are looking at. And here in the Midwest, business owners are focused on revenue growth and a path to profitability. Go figure, right? That wouldn't be something that some entrepreneurs don't focus on, but it's very focused here in the Midwest. And so when we come in at an early stage, we want to see some of that revenue already and that path to get to that point. And so for me and for us, that's, that helps mitigate that. Of course, having a good disruptive solution in an industry that is ripe for, a way to do things better is also obviously important. That in the fact that they have customers that are paying for it makes a big difference. That it shows that they're onto something. So, also really unique technology, like, in a hot sector like virtual event space, for example, or virtual events where, people are using it. It's something that is kind of a paradigm shift for people. We like opportunities like that as well, where it changes behaviors, but it's behaviors that I believe will be here going forward as well. It's changed the dynamic of how we interact with each other. So, yeah.
And what industries are you seeing that are really pulling in interest around seed and this early stage investment right now? Because there are a lot of companies, there's a lot of accelerators, there's a lot of people building and fundraising. We probably will have a huge wave, bigger than what we saw at the end of 2020 coming into this year and next, of new companies really starting in this next new 10-year cycle. What industries are you starting to see that people are building in the Midwest, or again, globally, but I know you focus very heavily in the Midwest?
Yeah, I mean, healthcare has always been a big one. Healthcare IT, that's accelerating right now because of what's going on. But that's always been a hot area, but it's, even more so right now. Also, fintech, there's an acceleration in fintech investments as well. So we're starting to see a lot of that. Cannabis is actually getting a lot of attention, cannabis tech or all types of cannabis, but related businesses. But that Illinois is one of the top states with cannabis companies. Even though we were not one of the first to legalize anything here, medical or recreational, we have 3 of the top cannabis companies in the country that are public, and we have others that are right out there. So pretty unique that it's here in Illinois, even though we have a lot of regulations around it. But there's huge opportunities here for that. We've exceeded the dollar amount that has been generated in the cannabis industry last year when it became legal January of last year, recreational legally. So that is a huge area. And I would say certain, what's hot here could be hot in other areas too, but we have a lot of different industries here. Food tech is also very popular and a growing area here. We're a food town. I know New York is too, but Chicago's known for its food. We have several food accelerators. We have Kraft Heinz, for example, as a VC fund and accelerator for food companies. Plug and Play is coming to Chicago now to open up a food accelerator space, fund. We have several, another one called The Hatchery. We've got a lot. Cleveland Avenue, which was started by Don Thompson, former CEO of McDonald's, started something. He has a fund and a commercial kitchen and an accelerator, also incubator, focused on supporting food across all areas. In Beyond Meat was one of their big successes that obviously went public not too long ago. And so there's a ton of food innovation happening here. So that's one that stands out. Manufacturing is also a big sector here in the Chicago area and the Midwest. We have the North America's largest maker space called M Hub here in Chicago. It's a former Motorola space. So there's members, there's space to work out of, there's equipment that you can build physical products, and they are raising a fund and now have an accelerator as well for physical product entrepreneurs. So we've got so much happening here that sometimes it gets lost here because we have so many industries here, but we've got a couple that really stand out among other ones.
Mhm. Well, thank you very much, Jason. That's great. I mean, I didn't realize the food industry was so big. There's also Tyson Foods, I know, is within the region. If you go a little bit further down south, you got Chick-fil-A, and also Cisco and others. So you're definitely pulling on that. I think even Walmart has a program also in Arkansas, where they're doing a lot in the not just retail but also food space and logistics, supply chain. So thank you. Yes, thank you, Jason. Gary, same to you. I mean, what is getting you outside of AI? We know AI is the new electricity. What outside of artificial intelligence and quantum are you starting to see in coming to GSV, but globally? I mean, where are you starting to see the activity really take momentum here in the early days of 2021?
Well, I mean, fintech is really hot.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a lot of the underlying. So in terms of vertical, I mean, it's AI is across multiple vertical markets, right? So fintech, supply chain are really hot right now. Health tech is really hot because of drug discovery and not having as much bench time. So this pandemic has really thrown it forward. Virtual, we also are working with a company that's doing virtual spaces because people during the pandemic couldn't go to events. So imagine having a university set up. So you have the professor in the front, you've got your seating and everything. You have your assigned seats. You sit in your seat with your avatar, sitting in a seat, listening to the professor or a speaker speak. So those kind of technology are really interesting. How to hyper personalize the online experience to make it more interesting from an e-commerce perspective, how to make that experience deeper, wider, and personalized for you. So we're seeing movement in that area. We're starting to see some movement on the brick and mortar areas like dynamic pricing models and merchandise planning systems tied in through the time of manufacture of the product all the way to the end point where it gets to the consumer, which is what we had, the challenges we have during this pandemic, not being able to get a roll of toilet paper, right? So people will laugh back. In another year, people will laugh, oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe that happened, but it did, and water and all kinds of things. So we've learned some valuable lessons. The other thing is, space tech is really hot. So all kinds of areas around space tech. So whether it's Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, or SpaceX, it's all kinds of emerging technologies, groups like Techstars and Matt Kozloff out of Los Angeles with that group. And again, a lot of those technologies can apply, the same models can be applied to different vertical markets. That's where the beauty of the system, it's about the training set. So we're looking across, and manufacturing with robotics, smart cities. We're seeing a lot of interest in Internet of Things and sensors within a smart city. I mean, think about it. Smart cities aren't smart. The traffic lights in a city are generally programmed to last 8 years. They don't respond to different conditions, population shifts, demographics in a city. They're programmed every 8 years on average. So why wouldn't they be programmed on a real-time basis? Why have we talked about sustainability? Aren't buildings, why aren't things tied together in a building? You leave a building, it shuts off, right? The temperatures go down. And using sensors again. So a lot of it across then battery technology. We have a battery technology company. They're really hot too because people are looking at how to be able to make this world a better place using things like lithium fluoride batteries that last 6 times longer than lithium ion, right? New kind of batteries, so that instead of going 350 miles in a Tesla, you can go 1,000 on a charge.
Very interesting. And thank you, Gary. Want to come back to both of you around closing thoughts and just big predictions for the year. Again, on the seed and early stage investment game in general, and maybe one piece of advice. So, closing thoughts. One piece of advice to an investor that's looking to make their first seed investment, and then your prediction for the year, and of course, where can everyone find you? Gary, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of first for the advice, when you're building your team up, make sure you have complementary skill sets because it's all about how the team works together. Make sure you have somebody in operations, somebody that's technical, and somebody can lead the team. It's good to be charismatic as a leader of the team, because it's really important to convince the customers. It's sales, right? It's whether you're raising money or you're selling to a customer, it's about sales. And if you don't have those skill sets, go out and develop them. So resilience is important. So it's never easy building a company. If it was, everybody would do it. If you look at the statistics, you shouldn't get into it to begin with. So stay out. If you don't think you can do it, don't start. But if you got the passion, vision, optimize the opportunity. What is it about? It's developing those contacts and a network to be able to support what you're doing. Those are the people that are going to help you push your company forward. So, this is a great opportunity, and use the remaining time we have before people start coming back out again and feeling better because of COVID. And I'm not saying in a bad way, but getting out of their houses, you have a captive audience still for another 5 to 6 months. Use it wisely. Get out. Write. It's good to write as much as you possibly can, because when they Google your name, that's how they start to judge who you are as a person. What kind of content have you written? Where do you appear? So get this stuff out. It's very, very important to do it. If there's nothing out there, and simple things, update your LinkedIn profile. You can reach me, Gary Fowler, on Twitter, Gary Fowler on LinkedIn. Happy to hear from you. This is an incredible time. Keep moving forward. AI is the new electricity. Quantum computers are going to dramatically change our lives. AI is across multiple vertical markets. So when you're looking for a co-founder, find somebody that's got or has access to incredible talent to be able to help you maximize the opportunity for your company.
Thank you very much, Gary. Jason.
Yeah, there are a lot of great opportunities for investors. Really pay attention to the team. Is the team credible? Is the founder someone that's seasoned? And if the founder, this first-time founder, has he or she brought some other good people around to build the company that have different levels of expertise to really grow that company. Also, look at the other investors that are coming into the round. While we at Propellant Ventures will invest alongside angels or angel funds or angel groups or other micro VCs, pay attention to all the other investors. Even if you're the first investor in, pay attention to who else is looking at the opportunity. Could be a successful entrepreneur that knows the space that wants to invest. It could be a VC that has expertise in the space, but pay attention to who the other investors are. And that will help, hopefully ease your mind that, you're mitigating some of the risk, even though it's still risky to invest in companies. But pay attention to that. Look at industries that are really growing right now. So healthcare, supply chain, fintech, even ed tech, future work. Look at industries that are really have an impact on people's lives and businesses, how businesses are doing things right now. And those are some of the areas that are getting a lot of attention right now. So I don't see these as trends. I see these as future growth and disruption for different industries and the way that people and businesses do things. So pay attention to some of those industries, and again, look for investors that may have that expertise and invest alongside them. So a lot of great opportunities out there. And I would read up. Well, Gary does a lot of writing, which is great. He also, I'm sure, reads a lot too to stay on top of it. Do the same thing. I read a lot of information. I subscribe to a lot of different, whether it's physical magazines or online information, whether it's PitchBook or NVCA, but read up on what's happening so you know what's going on, so you're at least knowledgeable about the investment opportunities out there. So for those that want to talk further, you can find me on LinkedIn, or my email is jason@propellant.vc.
Wonderful. Jason, Gary, thank you both very much. Wonderful co-hosts for today's discussion, again, around seed and early stage investments. For those tuning in, thank you so much as well. Thank you for all the comments. Hello again for all those that posted. We appreciate it. For any questions we didn't get to, do reach out to us afterwards, and we'll have that follow-up, as both Jason and Gary mentioned, where to find them. And if you'd like to be on a show like today, make sure you reach out to the team and or myself, but also make sure you click that subscribe button, share the episode, and check out the archive on LATOKEN.com to hear from Jason, Gary, and all of our speakers of the VCTV family. A big thank you to the LATOKEN team, to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me along with Jason and Gary online 24/7, 365. Look me up at Kyle Ellicott online, and we'll be back here with a little bit more VC